Welcome to Season 10, Episode 63 of the Be Conscious podcast. Today, I am so pleased to interview Sarah McCrum, author, educator, and game changer. Now, listen in as she shares how she helps business owners and leaders create a healthy relationship with money. Here we go.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
In this inspiring episode of the Be Conscious podcast with Sarah, we're going to talk about money mindset and breaking cycles of generational lack and scarcity, whether it be in your home life or your business ventures. Once you begin to bring awareness to generational patterns and then act to break unwanted cycles, your mental presence, conscious awareness, and clarity of thought are essential. Something that has helped me on my conscious journey with my mental clarity and alertness is Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a clean, organic 2-ounce mental performance shot that keeps you at peak mental performance throughout the day. And you know what I absolutely love about Magic Mind is that it not only tastes great, but I no longer have those midday energy slumps. Now listen, if you're looking for an alternative to the jitters and the ups and downs of caffeine, or if you simply want to enhance your favorite energy drink, give Magic Mind a try. You'll wonder what you ever did before Magic Mind, and if you're anything like me, we'll look forward to it each morning. The Be Conscious podcast audience gets $30 off first-time subscriptions with code BeConscious20 at checkout. That's www.magicmind.com/BeConscious20. Now let's get back to our interview with Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the Be Conscious podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited to have this conversation about money, especially a conscious conversation. One of the things that I have written about and spoken about and truly believe is that when it comes to our financial equations, when we do all of our math around finances, rarely, if ever, are our feelings given any credence. And I believe you and I both know that what we feel and believe inside about money affects our money story, that money is more than dollars and cents. So I wanted to ask you, Sarah, I know you are the author of Love Money, Money Loves You. It is an outstanding book. And I was hoping that you could take us back to the time when you began writing this book. What was going on with you and with your business?
Shortly before I started writing, I had experienced a business failure, complete business failure, which is a really horrible experience. And it had taken quite a long time. It was as a result of the recession that started in 2008. And so it had a long period of really not performing, not being able to pay our bills. And in the end, it all kind of just fell apart. And what happened after that was that I was given a little book which was called How to Become a Money Magnet. And it had exercises at the end of the chapters. And one of the exercises just said, "What would money like to say to you?" And I started writing, I was journaling. I wasn't really expecting anything at all. And I started writing this message, and it was like money was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing it said was, "I would like to tell you to love me." And then it went on and it started saying, "I'm an energy. I'm very powerful and beautiful." And it started telling me to do things like, pay with me, play with me, invest me, do whatever you want with me. That was kind of the message. Just like really go out and enjoy money and don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote for about 2 pages in my notebook, this incredibly beautiful message from money. And it ended by saying, "Don't wait. Just take me. I will love you.
Okay. So I have to ask this. When you begin, okay, my understanding is you are a business person working really hard, working to pay your bills, the money's not coming in. And in this place of exacerbation, perhaps, maybe this place of humiliation, you start journaling. And then you say you hear it as if money is speaking to you. So at that point in your life, did you believe it? Like, were you ready to accept this, or did you think I'm going crazy, or I don't know if I believe it, or no one's going to believe it? Like, what was going on inside of yourself when you're hearing these messages?
So first of all, I didn't actually hear it. What happened was I just was writing. It was like automatic writing. Only what came out was very coherent and was clearly not my words. I didn't know the things that were written there. And that was very important for me. So because it was beautiful and it was surprising and it was very light, it makes you feel good when you read it. I knew that it was true.
Mm,
So I never questioned true. I had already learned. I'd trained for 20 years or something with Chinese masters, learning about energy. And so I already had some experience with, being able to tune into things, being able to receive information. So that was fairly familiar for me. So I knew to trust it. I knew it was a good source because of the quality and the simplicity and the clarity and the beauty of it. But what I didn't know was what on earth to do with it, because what happened was I started writing every day because it was so touching, the first message. It opened my heart. I just couldn't
hmm
believe it. It was so different from what I was used to. And then I thought, well, maybe money's got another message for me. And it turned it out that it did. And then again, and then again. And I'd written probably 50 or 60 of these messages, which are all the chapters of what became my book, Love Money, Money Loves You. And I started to think, if I was somebody like Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God,
hmm
I never thought that I was writing a book. I was just writing these messages, reading them back to myself, and just so kind of intrigued by what was coming through. But I hadn't put it together. It was quite a bit later I thought, well, these messages are not just for me. They must be here for sharing with other people. And and at that point I had no money. I think I had $200 a month to live on. Plus I had food and accommodation. I was living on a farm. So I was completely broke. And I just realized that I needed to share it with other people, even if I didn't yet know how to apply the messages in the book.
Mm. You said something about you knew that it was true. And one of the things that I think about truth is that it has an intangible quality. It is that the truth, when you hear it, you know it. Like there's no question within you that it's true or not. There's something that resonates very deeply in your heart and in your soul, even if you can't make sense of it. I'm curious, as you went on this journey, how did other business leaders or your audience receive what I would consider a channeled book?
Yes, I don't usually describe it as a channeled book because that puts it into a kind of weird category. So I just tell people exactly what happened and let them make of it what they will. And enough people experience things like automatic writing these days, or they know about artists being inspired by some muse or something, that I've never really had
hmm
any comeback from that point of view. What I have found is for a lot of people, exactly what you described about something that's true. They say things like, this is the first thing I've read about money that really resonates or really feels true deep inside
hmm
myself. I hear that from a lot of people. Um, from business people, like some people who are ultra rational or ultra scientific, they only look at the material
Or
world. They
evidence.
can't,
hmm
like, it doesn't make it's not even about evidence. It's about, it doesn't make sense to them. They can't, it's like it doesn't fit in their worldview. There's no room for it.
mm
But I obviously don't attract many people like that because they don't go looking for books like that. So what I attract typically is people for whom it is profoundly meaningful. And I think change is something, it's like once you've seen it, you can never unsee it.
Yes, yes, I love that. Okay, I'm going to share an epiphany that I had reading your book. One of the things that this is part of my money story was I believe that there was never enough money, and that the idea that some people had it and some people didn't, and it seemed very hard to come by. And I couldn't understand why that was, but it just seems like that's how it was. And one of the things that I had to grasp was this limitlessness of it. And when I started to take that on, Sarah, I thought about it. I said, you know what? There are trillions upon trillions of dollars, euros, whatever you transact in, pesos, whatever currency you transact in, floating and transacting and moving and exchanging across the world every single moment of every single day. And so to me, I thought about that even more deeply, that there is more than enough money in the world for everyone to have more than enough. That it's not that there isn't enough money, or that if I have it, somebody else doesn't, but it's more of an access issue. Or I would say, in a spiritual sense, more of a energetic issue, like this ability to receive money, or perhaps even a lack of resistance to receiving money. And so I wanted to kind of get your sense of your beliefs. If you can share with us, what is your money story? What were your beliefs before and after this experience regarding money?
Well, I grew up in a British middle class family. And in those days, I'm not sure if it's changed really, you didn't talk about money, sex, politics, or religion. Literally, we didn't talk about it. So the only thing I really remember from my childhood is that at one point my dad, I don't know if he was made redundant or he had a period between jobs. He was in the Navy actually, where he wasn't earning any money. And it was an adventure for him, which is interesting. I remember him making beer rather than buying beer and things like that. And he took it as a great adventure. And I actually think that that translated not particularly helpfully, in fact, for me, because I think I got this idea that not having enough money is an adventure and kind of cool and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm.
it's better than being miserable about it, but I have noticed that pattern that when money gets low for me, something wakes up in me and I get more engaged and it's more fun. So it's not super healthy, but I do think that came through. So really, when I wrote the book, it's always surprised me that I'm the person who wrote that book because I was so just disengaged.
Mm.
Um, I'd started a business without even really thinking about it in those terms. I grew up thinking that business was somehow almost like dirty.
Mm.
It was, unless it was a very old established business, it was very frowned upon in my generation in that kind of middle class culture. So I was almost allergic to the idea that I was doing business. So I was doing business without really naming it, which is a very weird thing. So I think that before I wrote the book, there was just this ignoring. It wasn't ignorance, it was ignoring of it, just trying to make it as unimportant as possible, which creates a whole lot of wishful thinking because you need money in business, obviously. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so it was rather distorted. And I was also training with a Chinese master, and we got some quite distorted patterns there as well, which the book helped me to correct. So there was quite a lot of pressure at times for us to bring in money that largely went to her. And we were always paying for courses and things like that, but it did seem like we could never really keep money. It would whatever money we had always went on the next course. And one of the things that I learned actually from the book is that you need to enjoy money in your own name and in your own right. You can't just go and make it for somebody else or do everything for somebody else and have a healthy relationship with money. Even if you want to make money for charity, you actually need to make it and bring it in and enjoy it and then enjoy giving it to charity. Something goes wrong in that relationship if you don't somehow participate fully
Mm-hmm.
in the experience of money. So that's one of the things that I've learned. Um, I have learnt to talk about it and be open about it. I don't have a problem with that now, and that makes it much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I've learnt that the energy of money is really available. And I've also learnt that sometimes it's very difficult for me to access it because I'm somehow switched off, or I close myself to it. Or a typical pattern for me is that I can have a period where money's flowing really beautifully and everything feels great and I don't worry about it at all. I never have to think about paying bills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really nice. And then something might happen, and there might be a reason why it gets more difficult for a while. Sometimes it's once, for example, it was a business partnership stopped working, and I'd been earning a lot of money through that partnership, and then suddenly it wasn't there anymore. These things happen in business. And what I found is that when money gets low for me at any level, whether it's, when I was really living on the edge, just trying to survive, or when I have a much more successful business, but it can still get low because I have much more expenses now as well. I can get into a pattern of saying, I can't do this, I can't do that because I can't afford it. We don't have enough money. And I do that sometimes in a way that becomes a self fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand exactly how that happens because I wrote the book and I've learned and I've taught and I really get it. But sometimes it just happens because there really isn't that much money.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a right way of doing that, which is to say, well, I can't afford it now, but I'm going to be able to. But I can sometimes lock myself
Mm-hmm.
into, I can't afford it. We've got to keep everything really tight. We can't afford to do anything. And always the point comes where something softens inside me or it opens inside me and I relax and I start to say, you know what? I really want to do something for me that's good. I want to give myself something. I want to treat myself well. And invariably, that is the beginning of the relationship opening up again and more prosperity flowing into my life. And you would think after you've done that 2 or 3 times that you would get it. But I notice that it happens at a higher level somehow. I do it with more money, if you see what I mean, or for different reasons. And it's always the same pattern. And what I see is that people often have a pattern
Mm-hmm.
that they repeat at different levels over and over again, which I find quite fascinating.
I love what you just said because this is exactly what I think we don't know how to break through. So, you said something earlier in this conversation about believing that business inherently was dirty and unimportant, and you were ignoring it, or you said you felt you were allergic to it in some way. And then on the other hand, you realize that you need money for your business to grow. And so, to me, when there is a conflict between what we perhaps say, what we think, and what we believe, each of those, I guess, acts or abilities of us carries its own unique vibration. So when you have a feeling of ick or allergy or disgust with money, or that money's dirty, or you say things like that, or you say, I need more money, all of that carries a resonance. And so I believe there's a secret about our feelings that we're never taught, and that is they are meant to be felt, and that in fact, the frequency of our feelings, particularly the ones that resonate from our heart center, are the language of the universe. And that frequency, that most deeply held frequency, that resonates out to that universal substrate of creation and returns to us exactly what we feel. I believe that the universe has a mandate or duty to give us exactly what we desire, that we truly desire. And if we are resonating a frequency of deprivation, that I need it, I need it, or we're saying things like I can't afford it, and so we're feeling lack, then we see more and more situations in our life, in our, I would say, our circumstance, that, like you said, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. I say I need more money, or I'm broke, or there's not enough money, or I can't afford it. And there are more and more things that you can't afford. There are more and more bills and more responsibilities and obligations that you don't have the money for. It's like amazing how it happens. And you say to yourself, I knew it. I knew it. But I think what happens, Sarah, is we don't recognize how powerful we are as creators, that we're creating all of this. But I think also when you have the awareness that you have, and you say, wait a second, I recognize this pattern. I'm in flow, then something happens, something always happens, and then it puts me back into that lower frequency or that lower vibration of lack, of scarcity, of I can't afford it, of some people like me, depression, sadness, like very heavy, deep feeling like unwanted or unloved, just very deep core emotions and core beliefs. Like it touches that stuff and it triggers it in us. And I believe that we see the pattern over and over until we no longer have to. And so when I say we no longer have to, that means that we've transformed or transmuted those dense energies, those feelings of lack, those feelings of scarcity, those feelings of fear surrounding money. So I think it's very intentional. And this pattern that you are describing is exactly the pattern that I have been dealing with my entire life and working so diligently, like in the realm of money consciousness, to break it, to break through it. I think perhaps the key, if you will, Sarah, is to acknowledge that this is a resonant frequency within your energetic matrix, your spirit, your soul, your life force, whatever you want to call that, your consciousness, and that it perhaps has been with you for a very long time. And perhaps in another life or another experience, it served you in some way. And now you're in a different place, in a different life, in a different time and space. And you're thinking, well, I don't need this anymore. It's not useful to me, or it's harming me. And then the question becomes, well, then how do we let it go? And I think that's the most difficult thing about money problems or money issues or money history is we don't know how to let it go. And so we experience the pattern over and over and over again.
I actually have a sense that it's maybe a bit different from that. In fact, it feels like that. But I recognize that
Mm-hmm.
those periods that feel more like scarcity, and that pattern that I've been describing, it's always that has made me grow to a next level. Without question, every single time that I've had some kind of struggle with money,
Mm-hmm.
it has always been actually the contraction that, or how can we say, it's like propels an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Though I can be hard on myself saying, oh, you're making that same mistake again, I'm not actually, because I'm not in the place I was before. And I'm in fact being taken to a new place through a pattern that thankfully is familiar to me. Because one of the things I often reflect on is, can you imagine if every single time we messed up, or every time we kind of got a bit more contracted, which we have to do, if we want to expand, we have to be able to contract, it was a different pattern. And we had absolutely no clue what was going on. I think that would be way more difficult. So I'm actually, in a way, I'm
Mm-hmm.
also very grateful because I can see that this pattern repeats at always at a higher level than I was before, and it always takes me to a considerable acceleration or expansion of my connection with money. And
Mm.
so I found that it's very important to recognize that I've never been here before, actually. Although it feels like, oh, here I am again, it's not, because it's a different circumstance. I've made different decisions. I'm operating at a different level, and I'm going to a different place. I'm becoming something different. And then I can be actually very grateful for whatever it is that I learn and grow through that challenging experience. Because also, the thing I've discovered about myself is that for me, money is what pushes me to grow in the end. I don't have lots of health problems usually. It's not a big trigger for me.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I've maybe had more relationship triggers. I've had, and I have had some of those big time at times in business, and have grown a lot through them. But my money is my kind of almost my daily growing, because I grew up ignoring it and not talking about it. It it sort of prods me, and to be conscious about it and to engage with it and to love it and to do all the things that my book talks about, which I would, if I just kind of went on default, I would probably forget to do. So there's a way in which I'm grateful for the struggling times. I love the times when it's flowing very easily, but I realize that I get quite complacent quite quickly. So I think there's a very interesting dynamic that's going on in here, and we shouldn't be afraid of our challenges with money.
I love that. I love what you said about being grateful because, but I also think, Sarah, to come to that place takes a lot of what I call conscious awareness because otherwise you become victimized by the pattern and the cycle. You don't recognize as it's helping you, or that in fact the next time you experience it, that you're different, the circumstance is slightly different, but most importantly, like vibrationally, you are different. And your awareness, just the fact that you have awareness is different. And then to me, that higher level, like perhaps the highest level, is thanking yourself, the universe, whatever you believe in, for that experience, because you realize that is the catalyst for helping you to grow to the next level. Many people can't come to the place of gratitude for that, something that hurts them so deeply. And I think that nobody comes to earth for free, that we all have stuff to overcome. So, as you aptly said, it could be your relationships. That's the pattern. Failing in relationships or pain in that. Maybe you have health issues or bodily issues, something in your physical form. That's your trigger. And then some of us, and I count myself in this bucket, it's security. Like at the very core of it, it's like our security and our worth. That is triggered. It's like the universe knows what it is that gets you going. It's like everybody has buttons and it knows which button to push to get you moving or shifting or changing or growing, if you will. And mine is certainly in this realm of security. And I think most people have it in the physical part or their health part because they fear death. And I recognized I had a spiritual awakening in 2012 and I began leaving out of my body. And that experience took away the fear of death. And so there is no cancer, there's no bodily thing that the universe can throw me and then that I'm afraid of, because I think, okay, well, if I've got to die, no big deal. I'm okay with it. I don't have fear of it. And so it doesn't usually give me body stuff, but it does give me money stuff because I have felt more afraid to live than to die. The inherent challenges of living raises more fear in me than the idea or the act of dying. And so I get challenged with living, with my security and finances and living. I think a lion's share of humanity experiences this, but I think what separates many people that overcome it versus don't is recognizing the pattern and then being grateful for it.
I think it takes time. In my experience, I need to go through the pattern. Maybe, I need to go through, there's a struggling part of things at times. I just need to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
I've grown a tremendous amount of skill through struggling times, because if you have to pay your bills and you make sure that you pay your bills, you learn a lot about how to make money in difficult circumstances. I've done a lot of that. And I'm tremendously grateful for that experience. But the gratitude comes at a certain point. And usually, once the gratitude is there, most of the learning is probably done.
Mm.
So I think sometimes we try to feel gratitude too early. We try really hard. We know we're supposed to be grateful, and we're not really grateful
Exactly.
because it's actually hurting. It's like, how can you be grateful for something that's hurting?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. Uh, but life brings what it brings, and we what has really changed for me, I think when I was younger, I just didn't have the power somehow to be able to solve things. And as I've got more experience, I've discovered, oh, you can solve this. Here's a challenge, and you need to make money, and you've got to do it quickly, and you've got to pay your team or whatever, and you haven't got enough money to pay your team this month. But I've got to have enough money to pay my team, so I've got to go out and make sure it's there, and then I do. So it's this tremendous kind of, like you said, it's like a push. It says, come on, you've got to do it. Now, if you feel depressed or apathetic or kind of just disconnected, of course you don't. You just say, oh, poor me, I can't do it. That's difficult. And that, I think I wasn't the depressive type, but I was a bit of an opter out. Or I just didn't take the risk, so I wouldn't put myself in that situation. But now I've found that learnt, I've learnt how to face things and deal with them, at least at a certain level. And I can see that if I keep doing this, I'm going to get better and better at it, and I'm going to be able to solve bigger and bigger problems. And I've come to recognize that it was always an illusion that life was suddenly going to be really easy. That actually the whole point is if you can do something at this level, then you get grown to another level. And I think we have a general illusion about money that if I have lots of money, my life's going to be very easy. Actually, if you have more money, you have more responsibility and you can do more. You have to make more decisions. You have to take, more responsibility. And so let's let go of this illusion that money is all about creating ease. It creates a certain type of ease, but actually, what really happens is that you have more money as you're willing to take more responsibility.
I think that idea is, I think there's some beliefs. Some people believe more money, more problems. And so they keep playing small. They're afraid of whatever the tax is or people coming after them, or I think it falls in that realm of fear of success. I tend to believe these days that the only thing that money solves are financial problems that are self-created, right? So it doesn't make you happier or better or more adjusted or more of a decent human or less of a more decent human if you have a lot of money. Having lots of money or more than enough money, it gives the mind a break from worrying about money. Whatever's going on inside of you, money can't do it. Just like any of the proxies of money, like more cars or shoes or houses or boats or planes, that doesn't ease or heal what ails the soul. It's a lesson that some of us must learn. But the idea, I think, behind these illusions, it's really examining belief systems of what anything is. One of the belief systems that I know that I've been challenged with is that if you're an artist, if you're a content creator, a writer, an author, a speaker, an actor, whatever, then you're going to be starving. That inherent in that journey is you're not going to make money. I've heard different people tell me that spiritual work or self-help, whatever they want to categorize it, doesn't pay. I've had people say that to me as I've been doing this work for nearly a decade. And I said, well, I don't know if that's true. I have to examine that belief because I've heard it enough that I start to wonder if it's true. And then I look at other people that have made more than enough money doing what is in their heart or what is in their passion or what is their life path in the spiritual realm that have created wealth. And so I know that it's not impossible. To me, it's really these trials, I believe these patterns are asking us to examine our beliefs, the things that we hold nearest to us. And I feel that once you overcome a belief, then you don't need to experience that pattern or that feeling again, that you transform it. It becomes something else. So maybe if I had fear surrounding money, maybe now I'm, as you put it, curious about it. That's a huge vibrational shift from fear or pain, the pain that comes with that, to a feeling of curiosity or asking a higher level question. What can I do differently? Those are vibrational shifts in your energy. Just like you talk about gratitude, that it's not enough to say that you're grateful or believe that you should be grateful, but you actually feel grateful, that you actually are grateful. Because that is a very high resonant frequency. that I believe has the power to bring you out of fear, one of the lower frequencies, or even shame, which, according to Dr. David Hawkins on the map of consciousness, is the lowest resonating frequency in human beings. So the question becomes, how can we shift our frequency from those lower or denser energies, those feelings of shame, guilt, fear, those insecure feelings, into higher vibrations of courage and curiosity, joy, love, gratitude, and even what we would call enlightenment. I believe that's the game we're playing on the planet. Is we have all of these patterns, and as you aptly said, I think you are absolutely correct. They are designed to move you forward, but it takes awareness to be open to it or to relax into it, to allow it, to feel, to allow yourself to feel through it. I know that, at least in the American culture, um, when people have the feeling that they don't like, or they recognize you're in the pattern that they're experiencing again, even that thing that's very familiar to you, as you said, it's not new. The feeling is the same. The circumstance may be slightly different. You may be different. The time might be different, but the feeling is very familiar to you. Most people will drink or distract themselves or numb themselves or intoxicate themselves to not feel it. And I think the key is really that you must feel through it. You must relax into that difficulty, into that feeling. And then you may grow. And then you may, as you say, expand into the next or higher level of it. And I think when it comes to money, if you're playing a bigger game, like you want to serve in a bigger way, then you're absolutely correct that you're going to need to have more responsibilities. To whom much is given, much is required or expected. And so if you can't handle the small stuff, if you can't handle a small deficit, what about when that is in the millions? Who are you then? And so I think that's a very important lesson for all of us to learn if we're trying to grow businesses and grow up financially. I wanted to ask you a question, Sarah, about the businesses, people running the business, because we like to separate the business from the individuals, and we don't often recognize that if a business is struggling financially, then we need to look no further than the people who are running the business, particularly the leaders or the founders of the business, because that's a vibrational frequency that is within them that is carried out throughout the business. I mean, I've worked in a company where the founder of the business was very miserly or stingy, and I believe that comes from fear. Of a different variety, and so everything was very tight. And on one hand, you can say, well, that's fiscally responsible. You can give all kinds of arguments of how that is beneficial, and there are benefits of it. But then there are other parts of it where, again, you don't grow or you don't compensate your employees well, or you have a lot of turnover and attrition because people feel they aren't treated well or paid their worth or value. And so I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the business side of this and what you notice inside of businesses, and particularly obviously from business leaders who are open to the spiritual side of money.
The thing, especially in small businesses where you have founders and it's not a massive corporation, what the thing that I see most clearly is that you and your energy as the business owner, for example, or the leader, you are what arrive in the business every day, and if you are feeling off in some way, that's going to affect everything you do. So as you become more aligned with yourself and your own values, as you align money with those values, which you can do once you have this understanding about money. It's very difficult if you think money is the root of all evil to ever align your values with money. But if you can have a
Mm,
new understanding of money, that money is connected with love and it's a very beautiful energy on this planet, then you can connect it with your values. So the more you do that inner work on yourself and also your character, build
mhm.
your ability to achieve things with those values in place without sacrificing them and compromising them and becoming a person you wouldn't even yourself want to know, which a lot of people do really, then you become a better person. And you are in the center of that business, and you're a better person in your relationships. Your relationship with money is better. You make better decisions. You're wiser. Everything is better. So for me, the human being sits at the center of everything. It's also the part that can really
Mhm.
change. If I'm stronger and clearer and wiser, I'm going to make better decisions that will affect the business and all the people and all the activities that happen within it. Very, very simple. And every business actually would benefit from that. A large corporation would really benefit from investing in the well-being and the mental clarity and the wisdom of its employees, because everything is better for that. We're not quite there yet, I would say, on the whole, but at least in smaller businesses, a business owner can recognize that and say, well, I'm going to do this for myself. They have that power, which is really great.
And so I think what I hear you saying is that really the business is a reflection of its owners or founders or its creators, and that is where that focus needs to be, so to speak, that those people need to invest in their inner wellness and their inner do their inner work, because that permeates throughout. It affects everything that they do, their business practices, who they hire, how they treat themselves better, they'll treat their employees better or coworkers better. That really, it all starts with you. Like whatever you're doing, the beginning and the end is with you.
But but it doesn't mean that somebody else can't do that. I have a client who works in a she's a CFO, a chief financial officer of three companies, big companies, and she talks about how she can literally shift the tone of a meeting now because she's become so much more into alignment with her own values. It's not her business, it's not her thing. So yes,
Mm.
yes, the founders. I don't know if it's true. I would have to test that. Is a business really a reflection of the founders? I think a business is a reflection of everybody who's in it and everyone who's involved with it at some level. Of course, founders have an influence, and a big influence, but I actually think that every single person has the same power to change things.
Mm. Mm.
Otherwise, we say, oh, blame, it becomes a kind of blame the founders. And if they're not doing their work, there's nothing we can do. And that leaves us as victims. And that's not actually correct. So I
Mhm.
think it's more helpful to realize that we all influence everything and learn if things are not going the way you want to in your life or in the business that you work in. See if you can learn. Like I always talk about, how do you get more of what you want and less of what you don't want?
Well, with that, Sarah, we've come to the hour, and I wanted to give you an opportunity. First, I want to thank you so much for all that you have brought to the conversation. You've given me some food for thought, and I hope this is true for our audience. But will you share with us how our audience can reach you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to reach me is on my website, which is sarahmccrum.com. I do have actually, if you're interested, you can get the first four chapters of the book free. You just look up, you just put in lovemoneyebook.com and you can download the first four chapters, and then you can decide if you're interested, because the book is really where all of this starts and where your re-education about money starts. It's called Love Money, Money Loves You. That's the name of the book. Lovemoneyebook.com is where you can get the first four chapters, and you'll know if it's for you or not. You'll know very quickly. It'll either resonate with you or it won't. So that's very straightforward. And I would just say in closing that I I think that we have to change our understanding of money. I don't think we can go much further, both individually and as a society, with our current understanding of money, because it's wildly inaccurate. And it's making us make decisions that are not good for us and are not good for other people. It's making us live in fear and often deep inner conflict around money when we could have a relationship where we experience joy, and money is very fulfilling for us. So I feel it's very important that we realize that our common understanding of money is just missing a whole lot, and start that education process.
I love it. Do you still have a course about money that you can share with us?
Yes, I run a program called Wealth Streams, where we actually look at four currencies: money, time, relationships, and wisdom. The four essential currencies of conscious business. It's a very full, very rich program, not surprisingly.
Yes, wonderful. I love that. And can our listeners find more about that on your website?
Yeah, everything's on my website.
Wonderful.
There's lots of free resources, lots of starting points. Yeah, it's all there.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Sarah, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Interested in giving Magic Mind a try? Get up to $30 off your first subscription with code BeConscious20 at checkout. You can claim it at www.magicmind.com/BeConscious20. The link can be found in the show notes. I want to thank you for taking this inner journey with us today. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious. If you love this episode and if today's message resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and review the Be Conscious podcast. It helps listeners just like you find intriguing and transformative content. I also want to know what inspired you and what conscious topics you would like to hear more about. And if you want, you can share those thoughts and questions with me at info@susannicholas.org.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.